Welcome to my house in the village of Walpole. Today I'm going to teach you how to properly plant a tree or shrub. In our arboretum work, it's really important that you know how to do this correctly. It's a simple thing, but it's a thing people make mistakes about a lot. There are a few very basic things that you need to always remember to do when you plant a tree or a shrub that'll guarantee its success. Getting started initially, which is really the most important part of planting trees and shrubs. Trees and shrubs are not cheap. They're expensive to buy. They're an investment in your landscape. So you want to make sure that you're getting them off to the best start possible. So I'm going to have my cameraman, Max, spin around so he can show you. This is an arborvitae. I planted this about a month ago. I've been doing a lot of landscaping at home this spring while we've had a little extra time. So this arborvitae is going to grow to be about 7 feet tall. It's columnar in shape, so it's going to fill in this space in the front of my house. And then I'm doing that repetition of threes that we talked about before, where I'm adding 2 cypress. There's this little guy right here, and this one that's over here on the other side of my lounge chairs. So these 3 upright shrubs are going to be providing that repetition in my landscape. At the same time, each one is a little different. So it's that whole thing about order and chaos, how you want to have some things repeated so your landscape isn't a disaster, crazy mess, but you want to have interesting things too, so you find that balance between the two. So that's what I'm working on today, is finishing up this 3-piece shrub planting. Even though they're not exactly together, they're in the same space. So that's why I think about them as one part of one theme of planting. So a lot of the stuff about planting a tree or shrub is going to tap back into stuff you learned in basic greenhouse management stuff, because size is really important. So just like when we repotted a plant in the greenhouse, you made sure that you didn't pot up too big. Remember that story about the 2 different plants. One, there's a pot that's too small, that's going to struggle and not be successful, but also in that plant with a pot that's too big, because then you're just going to get a lot of crazy root development and you're not going to have it in its firm foundation. So the same thing is true with trees and shrubs outside, and that's one of the mistakes that people make. They tend to dig really big holes. You want that hole to be dug so that when you take your plant out of the pot, so I already pre-dug this hole, I'm pretty sure it's the right size. I haven't taken the plant out of the pot yet. See if I can get it out. Oh, ooh, uh-oh. I might need some extra help here. This I should have tried before. Sometimes these have been in the pots for a while. And you have a little bit of a hard time getting them out. Okay, I'm gonna switch with my cameraman and see if he can get this pot out. So you can see it's not really Max helping me today, it's Bruce. He's gonna try to pull that out of the, oh, there he goes, just a little extra muscle. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Switch back. Okay. So now the goal is to have that hole dug. So I'm gonna dig it just a tiny bit deeper and a tiny bit wider. You're gonna use that same 1/3 width rule that you use with greenhouse plants. But with a tree or a shrub, you really want to make sure that it is not any deeper than it was in the pot. Trees and shrubs really like to have that solid, firm foundation on the bottom. It also keeps your tree or shrub from leaning. I'm not someone who likes to stake a tree or a shrub unless I absolutely start having problems. If you don't stake a tree or a shrub at planting, and it's planted correctly, those roots will really do that work for you. You shouldn't have to stake a tree or a shrub. So I dug it out a little bit more in the bottom. I'm going to measure it again. Yeah, that's good. It's going to sit there at the right depth. I'm going to decide that I like the tree, this little shrub. I'm going to decide that I like him where he is. He has this really cool curve. This cypress is called Spiralus hinoki, and it's not going to ever grow to be very tall. It's only going to get to be about 4 feet tall and about 3 feet wide, but has this really interesting spiraling stem structure. Okay, so now that I have my hole as deep as I want it, I am going to want it a tiny bit wider. So I'm just going to take a little off the sides, just to make sure it's wide enough. Sorry about my drizzly nose. Every time I start leaning over and digging, my allergies kick in and my nose starts dripping. So I'm going to take this out, the extra soil that made it a little wider. Okay, so we've talked about fertilizers in the past and the kind of fertilizer that we use in the greenhouse. We usually use a balanced and complete fertilizer in the greenhouse. But when we talked about fertilizers, we also talked about when you plant something new out in your landscape, you want to use something that has just phosphorus for root development. So this is triple super phosphate. It's a 0,45,0. So it's not going to add any extra nitrogen or any extra potassium. It's just going to be a little of phosphorus for root development. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit in the bottom of the hole. And then I'm going to sprinkle some in the dirt that's going to go, the soil, excuse me. It's going to go back in the hole afterwards. I'm going to put my shrub in there. I'm going to get him nice and straight, just the way I like him. Making sure that he looks the way I want him to look in the landscape. And then if you remember, I didn't put anything other than that little bit of triple superphosphate in the hole. But I am going to take some composted manure and I'm going to mix it in with the soil that's going back in the hole. That's to add a little organic matter, but not to the bottom. We want the bottom of the hole to be nice and solid and very structural and supportive. I'm going to use my fingers and toss this like a salad, just like when we're making the soilless mix for our plants in the greenhouse. And then I'm going to tuck this nice mix of fertilizer, composted manure, and the soil the shrub is going into, back into the hole. Pull some of these weeds off along the side. And so once I've used up the stuff that was mixed together on top, I might add a little bit more compost and fertilizer into this stuff that's going back into the hole. I can use my hand just like we do in the greenhouse to make sure it's level with the ground. We don't want it too high, then the water will shed off and the roots won't get the water that it needs. We don't want it too low because then it's going to sit and soak the crown of the shrub, and we don't want that either. It's kind of that Goldilocks thing that we've talked about before. It has to be just right. Not too high, not too low. Just right. A little more composted manure. I'm not packing that soil, but I'm firming it to keep that tree just the way, that shrub just the way I want it. Remember, it's a shrub, not a tree. And so that's pretty much planted as far as the hole and getting it back in the hole. And later, after I'm done the video, I'll dress this area up and make it neater and move away the extra soil. But what I'm going to do as a very final thing is going to take a little bit of that, little pinch of that triple superphosphate again for the root development. I'm going to sprinkle it on the top, just a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little bit more composted manure. So this is the way that I plant a tree or a shrub. You might meet someone else who'll tell you things that are different. There's always exceptions to people's rules. People have preferences about how they do things. But these are the rules that I have found over time have worked for a lot of really successful tree and shrub plantings. So that's how we plant a tree or shrub at the Fall Mountain Greenhouse. And happy Memorial Day, guys. Talk to you soon.